Hello and welcome to the Kent District Library's What We're Learning. I'm your host, Paula Wright, a branch librarian from our Comstock Park location, and tonight I'm here with Mallory Shotwell. Mallory is joining us from Lions and Rabbits and will be teaching us about the fundamentals of photography. Mallory Shotwell is a local artist, curator, and arts administrator from the Grand Rapids area. Mallory's work includes everything from large-scale interactive art projects to teaching art at the local food pantries. During today's class, Fundamentals of Photography, we will be learning about compositions and the basic elements of photography. Hello and welcome, Mallory. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Paula?
I am doing great.
Hey. So happy to be here.
Oh, we are so happy to have you. Shall we just get started?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go.
Hey, everybody. Hi, my name is Mallory Shotwell, and I'm so honored and blessed to be here sharing this evening with you. Like Paula was saying, I am an interdisciplinary artist, curator, and the studio arts program manager for Lions and Rabbits. As an artist, I work primarily with photography and audio and video to make interactive installations related to a theme. So currently, I am studying and building a body of work to make a visual articulation of breast cancer. In this class, I'm so excited, we are learning how to see and work like a photographer. A huge part of photography is seeing like a photographer. So together we're going to be looking at foundations of photography, composition, lighting, perspective, and learning different styles and work of famous photographers. So tonight, all you need as you're watching, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching later, what you need is a piece of printer paper or loose leaf paper, something to write with, scissors, and maybe a notebook to jot down some prompts. I recommend a small notebook. I always carry one around, and I love to write down my thoughts, ideas, different sketch ideas, or something beautiful that I notice, or different artifacts from my day. It's really fun. So people have so many different cameras. I really want to, think about accessibility in this class. So whether you have just your smartphone or a tablet, a point and shoot, a film camera, a DSLR camera, a digital camera, or nothing at all, this class is for you. So we're going to be really just looking at lots of different ways to access it. So it's a great practice in learning how to see. So we will be doing a lot in this class together, and I'm so grateful for Kent District Library and their team that they not only offer these amazing programs, but they also record them for future sessions. So you, the wonderful participants, will gather what you can from this single session, but feel free to reference it for the future, as we will have a variety of different ideas, things to work through, and prompts to work through. If you have any questions throughout this class, please comment wherever you are watching, whether that's on KDL, website, Facebook, or YouTube, and Paula will share them with me. So first, I want to identify different parts of the camera and show different things that you might be working with. So we have our smartphone. Most people have these. Tablets that we have. I love this one. This is just like a vintage point and shoot camera that we all had in the early 90s, or disposable cameras that were so super cool. I have a few different film cameras, and we'll be walking through how to load one, so you have that. And also here's one of my digital cameras. This is a digital SLR camera, and SLR stands for single lens reflex. So as we move through, I want to share how to load film and different elements of a basic camera. So a lot of people are using photography with their smartphones, but it's really fun to open it up to different media, different tools to kind of learn and access. So some of you may know this, but this may be new for some people. So obviously we have our cap, lens cap. This is the lens. We have our viewfinder here. We have our shutter button here, and that's what takes the photo. We have our different settings, and right here is how we can open up and load our camera. So we're going to be loading that tonight, but first I want to show you what happens in the film camera. And I love doing this with kids. But when you rewind, when you take a photo, a film camera is a great way to see and access this. But when you take a photo, the shutter actually opens and allows the camera to capture the light and the motion to capture the photo. So it was so fast that we can barely see anything. But if we slow it down, I will slow it down to 1/8. So that's 1/8 of a second. Oops. And you can really see it as it slows down. So you could see the difference between the first one, where it was 1/250th of a second then and able to capture the light. I'm going to quick load this in. And to do so, we can pop this open, drag our film across, pop it in, secure it, rewind, you're ready to go. So even if you're only doing photography for with your smartphone, it is incredible to open it up again to different tools, to different media, and to see the amazing things that you can come up with. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about a lot tonight is how to be super intentional and how to be super mindful in the work that you're creating, and how can you slow down and see like a photographer. So we will start the workshop part of this class talking about composition. So to do so, we're going to grab a piece of paper. I just have a piece of like printer paper here. So we're going to fold it in half. And it's the teacher and me that wants to say hamburger style. It's pretty important. So on my piece of paper here, I'm going to draw just half of a rectangle. You would find it easier to draw a full rectangle across, that's fine, but you really want it to be in the center of your page here. I'm going to refold it, grab my scissors, and I'm going to cut out the center. Here we have our viewfinder. So whether if you have a film camera or a digital one, as we said, the viewfinder is right here, and that is how you see your picture. The interesting thing about a film camera is that it is directly above the lens, so it's the closest to what you can actually see, versus a DSLR camera. It's close. It's so close. You might not even notice it, but it is just slightly off center. Something to be aware of. If we have a smartphone, what you see on your screen is, of course, the image that you're taking. So whether you have equipment or not, we're going to be practicing seeing. So what we see inside of our viewfinders makes such an interesting, or what I call dynamic image or composition. A composition is what we see in the photo piece or the thing in front of us, whether that is a work of art like a painting or a drawing or a photo, or different image-based work like advertisements or TV or movies. So within our compositions, we can do or photograph whatever brings us joy. Snapping a selfie or taking a quick shot of friends or family is awesome and important, but we can also consider bringing in these different elements of photography. One of the things that we can aim for is developing or having a center of interest. A center of interest is the first thing that you see that your eye goes to in the image. And being intentional about that practice is pretty awesome. So what we can do without viewfinders here, with our viewfinders here, is to examine different compositions. So what I want us to do is to practice seeing and even forming different centers of interest within the framing, within the viewfinders that we've created. So if I put my viewfinder here, my eye would be the center of interest because it's such a significantly different color than my hair and my skin. Whereas if I pull it back, my lighting here, I would say that perhaps my lips are the center of interest because it contrasts so much against my skin, but also all the blue that I'm wearing with my earrings. So what I want us to do is really quick move our viewfinders around our spaces to examine and find these different compositions. I want you to be really intentional about what you do and what you see. So photography in and of itself is a practice of seeing the moment, seeing the image, seeing the world. So how do you want to frame your world? So we're going to take the next 2 minutes here. I'm going to hang tight, and I would invite you to take the viewfinder that you have created and either move it around your space like this, or actually get up and move around and kind of capture some of the world around you. And how does that world change depending on how you move your viewfinder? So see what you can find, try to make a center of interest, and create a composition that you feel interesting. So it's about 7:13 right now, and we will come back at 7:15. So I'll just hang tight here. No, call you back in a second here. All right, so wherever you are, come on back. You can set your viewfinders down, and we're going to move forward. I'll give some more advice about what we can do with those viewfinders later on. So I'm going to screen share a little bit. So we're going to look at the artist, the work of an artist that creates dynamic compositions while creating a center of interest. I love teaching art history with every class that I offer and every bit of art that I do. I think it's so important to develop and see how artists do different things and how we can access that and how we can learn to see like they do. And then if we want, bring those elements into our own work. So we're going to look at first the work of Henri Cartier-Bresson. All right. So Henri Cartier-Bresson was a photographer who is known for a lot of work, but perhaps most notably his work called the decisive moment. Bresson would work with his film camera and sit in an ideal location, and he would wait, and he would wait and wait and wait for the right moment. And so whether that was a person hopping over a puddle or a person riding their bike by at just the right moment, a person and how they move their legs in the light, or how a person sitting can be perfectly accented by a cat moving into the image. He would wait and he would snap it right then and right there. It was a complete practice in seeing and being intentional with his work. So we're going to move through these images a little bit slower, and I want to see, and I'm going to give you a few seconds to see if you can spot his centers of interest. This one is behind the Gare Saint-Lazare. And many people, depending on who you are, and there's really no wrong answer, but depending on who you are, you may say that the man jumping over the puddle would be the center of interest. And we can see that he's the center of interest because not only is he the only figure in motion, but his reflection is below. And so it adds a level of balance, and it adds a level of that dynamic composition. I did have a good friend who was a graphic designer who absolutely pointed out the text in the background. So again, there's no wrong answer. It depends on who you are. But seeing that is key. So what is the center of interest? Whenever we look at art, whether it's photography or sculpture or a painting or a movie or even something like landscape design or a billboard, I want you to slow down and ask yourself a few questions. Do you like it? Why or why not? What do you see first? The center of interest. Does your eye move around the work? And how? And where does it go? So for many people, when they look at this image, they see the biker first. But Henri Cartier-Bresson sat at the top of this spiral staircase and waited and waited and waited until that person went by right at that moment. And he observed this gap on the top left side where it would be perfect when someone came through right at that moment. And the way that we see the spiral of the stairs and the spiral of the railing going down, as well as the lines of all the different pieces around it, and whether it's the street or the sidewalk or the building across, everything is pulling your eye towards that space where the biker is. And he's the only figure moving, so it appears different than anything else. But this is a great example of how our eye can move around in a piece. So this one is brilliant, and I love the different layers of color that we can see, even though it's black and white. But we can also see all these different layers of lines, and whether these lines are straight, as in the cushion or the blanket that's below, or the lines of the cushions or the lines of the woman. We see all of these different lines of movement that move our eye around the piece. So whether the center of interest is like her leg, for example, or her book, again, there's no wrong answer, but this is another great example of how our eyes are constantly moving around the piece. And this one I adore. This one, we generally see the man and the cat on the bottom, but as it's mostly a vertical piece, we see that our eyes are being pulled downward, and it's quite incredible. So this is a very long quote that I'm not going to read the whole thing of, but it's important to know, and I want to share this as it will be recorded. It's important to know with Henri Cartier-Bresson that he had this incredible amount of patience. He had this incredible ability to be so mindful in his work and wait and allow himself to be within that decisive moment. And I really love that as an embodiment of work or of doing photography. He writes, and this is much smaller, "To me, photography is the simultaneous recognition in a fraction of a second of the significance of an event, as well as the precise organization of forms which give that event its proper expression." And I love that so dearly, as it brings in not only the beauty of the moment, but he's also observing, like we saw with the staircase, all of these different forms that help your eye bring it to that one space. All right, so we're going to talk about lighting now as we move into more foundations of and elements of photography. So lighting plays a crucial role in photography. It can bring a photograph to life. It can generate effects, including spectacular shadows or silhouettes, or it may have a distinctly negative influence by creating unwanted glare or reflections. The word photography itself comes from the Greek and means light writing, photo meaning light, graphy meaning writing. We photographers are light artists, and it's really incredible to think about it like that. Drawing with light is different than drawing with a pen. It requires light-sensitive material and optics and dark enclosures and the ability to fix an image so it doesn't fade. The history of how all this came to be is intertwined with our understanding of our place in the solar system and the universe. So we're going to look at some examples here, and I will give you some ideas of things to experiment with. After each of these sections of these elements of photography, I'm going to have a list of prompts. Zoom teaching, motorcycle. I'm going to have a list of prompts, and I would encourage you, if you have a smartphone nearby, to take a photo of these prompts, or you can rewatch this at any time to regather. You can also write them down as we're going over them. So I want to explore what you can do, because you can 100% do any of these things that I'm about to show you. So we can explore things like handheld lights, things like flashlights, things like a desk lamp that you might have in your house from IKEA for $5, a night light. But the idea of one light is how the subject, in this case the boy, is using or being, standing near the light to bring accent or the center of interest to them. This is the same photographer, and in this one, her son was sleeping and she brought a flashlight into his room. This is one light photography, so it's one light illuminating the subject. This is a fantastic example, and this is where the one light is being cast in this one direction, and so one side of the face is illuminated while the other is more in darkness. It's another fantastic example with more contrast. Additional lights and devices. This would be an example of having two or more lights. And we can see the difference between something like this, where it has that sharp contrast in the face, or this, where you can see the big contrast in the darkness behind him, versus this, and it feels full. The lighting feels different, and it is more comprehensive. It feels, like a fill light or a full light experience. Sometimes, and I love this photo, it's a great example. Sometimes, whether you're looking at a magazine or different photos, you can see in their eyes what type of lighting they had. This is a fantastic example. So in this photo, they had a light behind her and a light in front of her, and so it cast a full scope of light. So we can explore some prompts to do with those in just a minute here. Christmas lights are amazing. So I love to experiment with Christmas lights or fairy lights as much as possible. They're on sale right now if you guys want them anywhere. Doing something with people holding lights, holding them close, and how that illuminates different parts of your face. Having the subject or the person in front of the lights and allowing their silhouette to be cast is 100% something that you can do. And having the lights in and around you, the photographer, as well as the subjects. So in this case, the photographer was actually immediately behind a string of lights, and the string of lights was cast within that, but that the photographer focused in on the two people here. So we can see that contrast. Another way to manipulate lighting, and I love to do this one when I teach kids photography classes, is to move the subject or people around you, or move the subject in and around the light to capture it on their faces. I don't have it here in the slideshow, but what I love to do with children is to have, in Zoom classes, I love to have them grab something like a colander. It's usually metal, it has all these holes in it, and then to stand by a window and see how the light casts through the colander to make these little spots in their faces. And we can manipulate the lighting and change our shadows in the world around us in incredible ways. So this here is a fern, and I love how her eye is really standing out as the center of interest. This is through a curtain. And this is a pocket of sunshine. And what I love about any one of these works that we're seeing here is whether it's lace, whether it's blinds, whether it's a colander, whether it's holding a doily or having a friend hold the doily and then the shadow is being cast onto your face, you're shaping light. You are manipulating the light and you are creating amazing images from that. All right. So, natural light and placement. So, an awesome thing to observe as we're being mindful or as we're being intentional in our photography practice, we can talk about people and we can talk about how we can ask our friends or the subjects or, the people that we're photographing, if we feel comfortable with them, we can ask them to sit in the sunlight or to sit in the pockets of light in different ways to make that a more dynamic or interesting photo. So this, I would say the man is the center of interest because he is in that pocket of light and he was very likely moved. But all the lines, from the bed, they move across the room and then up into the window there. And it creates a lot of movement. And yet our eyes are grounded by this man who's looking off into the distance. We can ask people to move so that the light isn't absolutely glaring them in the face. And so I'm sure with this image, the person was asked, can you gently move a little bit to the left? Can you gently move your shoulders a little bit this way? Can you turn your head here? And then that was the image. So using the light as a tool in your artist toolbox, so to speak, can be incredibly powerful. This is probably just observed, and that's incredible. I love how the light is streaming through and we see all these different lines that carry us right to the boy looking out the window. It's simple, it's captured, it's a moment, it's a decisive moment. And we can be super aware of what's called the Rembrandt Triangle. So in our lighting, whether we have a flashlight, whether we have fancy studio lighting, whether we have the light streaming through our windows, whether we have a desk lamp from IKEA for $5, we can move the light or we can move the people. And the Rembrandt lighting is where we have one side that's, significantly brighter, and then you see a little triangle on their cheek. And you can see an actual triangle on Rembrandt's cheek there. And this is a tool very utilized in portrait photography, and we can see that. And you too can achieve that with no materials. You can achieve that with nothing fancy, and you can achieve that at home. This is another fantastic example. It's an actual triangle on her cheek. So here's where I call to you guys. I want you to experiment with all of these things. So this is where, yes, absolutely, take a picture of my screenshot or write these things down in your notebook. But these are things that you can do, and you can do them today, you can do them tonight, you can do that at any point in time. So I want you to grab a desk lamp or a flashlight, and I want you to take several portrait pictures, even if they're just selfies, and I want you or the subject to be still. And I just want you to move the light around and observe how that changes. Can you achieve the Rembrandt triangle? What happens when you pull the light a little bit more this way? And so you would have this brightness here and this darkness here. Then you can bring in another lamp or another flashlight and see what you can do. Just see how it changes, even if you don't take any pictures. So if you have one light here, and then if you have one light over here, it creates a balance of light in the subject's face. And it's quite incredible. And you'll see the difference immediately. Some Christmas lights are spectacular as well. So you can take a photo of a person in front of the lights and then see what it looks like with a person behind the lights. You can capture natural light. And to do that, again, it's such an incredibly mindful practice. You can go out in the early morning, you can go out at noon, you can go out at dusk, called the golden hour, and you can capture people. You can capture how the grass changes or the flowers change in these different lighting times. It's a very Monet impressionist practice. Capturing a person in natural light. And again, this is where I would invite you to see what happens if you as the photographer move around, see how you can move yourself and having the person remain still, the subject remain still. And then try to experiment with the subject. And if you feel comfortable with them, ask them to move their bodies in a certain way, ask them to turn their heads in a certain way, and see what happens when you learn to manipulate and work with the light in different ways. Perspective. Perspective is amazing, and I say that about everything, but it really is an incredibly powerful tool in photography. It's defined as the sense of depth or spatial relationship between objects in a photo. So perspective is definitely manipulated or changed by the photographer. So unlike your eyes, which work in tandem to create depth perception, the camera only has one eye. As such, the camera has no built-in depth perception, so we get to manipulate it. It sees things as flat. So this is the same reason that it appears that like tree limbs are growing out of a person's head in photographs. Photographs where one subject might seem to merge with another, and photographs which seem to defy gravity are put into this genre of photography as well, although they rely on orientation and point of view more than an actual visual eye compression. So we're going to experiment with these, and these will be some prompts that you can explore at home in your space. Eye level is definitely the easiest one to understand. This is the one that we utilize most often. whether we're sitting in a chair across the table from our friends or we're on a nature hike. Eye level is the easiest. Eye level is standing or sitting or laying, but regardless, you are eye to eye with the subject. Another term for this is linear perspective. Linear convergence is the next one. That's parallel lines in a scene that the lines converge or disappear at a vanishing point. We can see that here at the Louvre, if the lines were to continue, they would just disappear into the horizon or the vanishing point. This is fantastic for downtown Grand Rapids, for example. The top view, often called the bird's eye perspective, is the camera is placed at a relatively high point, or it's higher than the subject that is being photographed. So a way to do this is to stand on a chair at your house or a ladder, or photograph something on the ground as you're looking down. My friend Maureen is a photographer, and she's amazing, and she shoots weddings all the time, and she will frequently climb trees with her camera strapped to her and climb into the branch and then get the couple at the wedding from the trees. And the view is dynamic, the view is interesting, and it makes for a really artful and unique photo, especially for weddings. I love this one of the kid. So this one is called ground perspective, but in my kids' classes, we call it the ant perspective. This is where the camera or you are on the ground at a low point. So you think of an ant on the ground looking up. The world looks big. And one way that photographers do this is often by taking photos of people or trees from the ground. So the people or the trees will look big or grand. So some prompts with perspective. Oops, let's see. Oops, we will come back to that. Forced perspective is something I'm very excited to share with you. I will come back to that. Prompts with perspective. Some things that you can do are take photos of yourself as eye level to the subject, even if the subject is yourself. You can find a subject that is taller or shorter than you and do the eye level portrait at that level. So whether you're here and your subject is taller, or here and your subject is lower, you are changing the perspective of your work. Take photos of a street or building where the lines disappear into the horizon line. Take photos of friends or family looking down, and really, like my friend Maureen, use whatever you can to get taller. In your city, go to a high point and take a photo of looking down. And you can do a portrait in ground perspective. It's really fun as well to take a photo of something in nature from a ground perspective. So all of the flowers are starting to bloom, or the leaves are starting to come out a lot stronger now. And to take a photo from root level, from ground level, at the flower emerging from the earth is beautiful. This is one of my absolute favorites to teach classes, and especially kids classes. Forced perspective is great. We can see some examples here. This is accessible, this is fun, this is immediate, and you can have results that are so joyful. Oftentimes we'll see these in different, TikTok videos or what have you, where the person is, bouncing a ball, or, the person is jumping into a cup of coffee. This is forced perspective, and this is certainly something that you can do. And we'll walk through how to do these things. This one has immediate results, and it's a complete blast. So this one obviously is one person standing close to the photographer, another person standing further away, and the photographer will help guide or support the people to say, water bottle lower, put your hands here, and creating this interesting and dynamic and super fun image. Again, the photographer is guiding the person standing close to look like they're cupping or holding their friends in the background. This image is created by a person. This looks like a selfie, it's self-portrait. The person took their shoes off and placed them in front, and then they themselves backed up, and using a fisheye lens, which is a different type of lens, they are leaning in with their entire body and the shoes are pointing in. So it creates this entire sense of manipulation or forced perspective. Again, the person is far away and the person looks like they're going to pick them up. This is a fantastic example where it is the Christmas lights or the fairy lights or otherwise party lights, and the person placed the mug or the bowl in front of the lights so that it looks like the bowl is full of lights, and then with the chopsticks are holding them as if they're going to eat them. These ones are done, and we can say it, call it like bending gravity, but it's mostly just done where a person is sitting in a funny or standing in a funny way, and it's done in the editing process, so we can rotate the entire photo, and it's bending gravity. So some things that you can do with forced perspective are manipulate the placement of the people or objects to change the story. See what you can do. You can make the main subject appear larger by being supremely close, while other things in the background are far away. You can make the main subject appear smaller, and having people pick them up as they're closer in the foreground. Bending gravity is really fun as well. So I want to check in real quick. Oops. And see how we're doing. I love to check in with my participants and with my students whenever we can. So I just want to see if you have any questions and see how you're doing or feeling. And if people, again, want to contribute, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or on the KDL website, you can send me chats, and I would love to hear about different materials that you're using, what equipment you have, if you have a fondness or a love of photography right now, or if you have favorite photographers in your communities or that you follow online. It's really incredible. So I just wanted to give everybody that reminder real quick, and then we can hop back. All right. So as I shared in the beginning, I adore teaching and actively teaching art history. And I think especially when we see these famous photographers and when we see these famous artists, it feels inaccessible. It feels like maybe we can't do that. Or we don't understand it, and then we don't pay attention. But it's incredible what they do and how they do it, and we can study how they do it. So we're going to go take a step further, and I want you to ask yourself a few questions as we look at this work. Again, I want you to ask yourself, if you like this picture, if you like this work, and then ask yourself why or why not. What do you see first? What is the center of interest? Does your eye move around? And then also, with the knowledge that we've gained just in this single class, you can go a step further and you can consider what the photographer was doing in their actions. What was their perspective? Were they standing? Were they sitting? How can you tell? Is it at immediate eye level? Is it a little bit different? Is the photographer on the ground? This is a great time to practice what we've been working on and the skills that we've learned. So first, we're going to take a look at the work of Vivian Maier. Vivian was a street photographer in the 1950s, and using her film camera, she would walk around the streets of Chicago with the children that she was nannying at the time. And she took photos of the world around her. What I love so dearly was that this is a practice of observation. I love that her photos tell this incredible story, and we want to fill in the story around this photo. And there's so many of us, regardless of our age, whether we have kids or not, whether we've been in this moment, we can put together the pieces of the story. We can put together, like, this boy is annoyed, but it looks like maybe there's gum on his shoe, and this man is helping him scrape it off. And we wonder who this man is. We wonder what is happening? Where are they going? What is the story behind it? She was an excellent practice in the decisive moment, and she would just walk around. She would observe very, very quickly, and unlike Henri Cartier-Bresson, she would walk and walk with her children that she was with, and then just take photos, just constantly. When she passed away, they found, dozens, if not hundreds, of film, like undeveloped film, and all of her body of work, and it was just extremely prolific person. Like, what, this is amazing. What is happening here? So next we're going to look at the work of Mu Aisha. Mu is a photographer who is working currently, and she captures the people in Bangladesh where she lives. So again, I want you to ask yourself, if you like this, do you like these images? Why do you like it? Why do you not? What do you see first? One reason why she is so highly acclaimed and shown throughout the entire world is the contrast of color and the eyes. And she shares as a photographer that one of the reasons she became a photographer is to capture the faces of the people around her and to bring more light to them. And I love that idea of bringing more light to the people around you and bringing more light to your life. As a complete tangent, one amazing thing to do as a photographer, if you're doing portrait work and within her work, is you can really focus in on the eyes. So generally, whether you're working with a smartphone, whether you're working with a film camera or a point and shoot or a DSLR, it will broad focus on the whole face. But if you focus right in on the eyes, that is what makes it extra dynamic and interesting. I love the work of Jamal Shabazz. Jamal is also a contemporary photographer working today, and his work changed so much. He would intentionally go into cities like New York City in the mid-'80s when New York was considered extremely dangerous. And he, unlike Vivian, who would take photos of strangers, he would intentionally go into all of these different communities, and he would get to know these people. And as he was getting to know them, he was developing and building community within his work. So all these people are looking at him, which is very different than Vivian's work. They are posing, and they are posing on their own. They're coming up with whatever they want. But he's getting portraits of not only the people, but the city. He's getting portraits of the world at that time when people said that the city was too dangerous. And he's finding ways to access different points and different people's lives and different people's stories. I love that we can see that he is taller than those people. And that's how we are more eye level to the person in the back. And he is slightly looking down on the people in the front. But they arrange themselves. And I love that. It creates this incredible line and this incredible composition. So we will cut back here. Oops. And stop screen sharing for a second. So I just wanted to impart with this class that the greatest thing about any art form, it doesn't matter what it is, if we're casually observing, if we're watching TV, if we're watching movies, art is everywhere and art is all around us at all times. And the greatest thing about art is that we can constantly learn and we can constantly understand more and see more. There's always more to practice. So what I ask in your photography practice in your work is practice being mindful, practice being intentional, practice being slow, practice a decisive moment. And that can be moving through a city as you sit on a park bench and you find how the light is going against that building and you wait until a person comes across. That can be sitting on your bed as your cat moves into the light square. That can be, watching a soccer game and how do people move in and around the space. So just watching the light, watching the shadows, and seeing the beauty all around you, that is seeing like a photographer. So as we went through, there were several slides with prompts on them. And I know this is different than a regular class that is offered with KDL where we're physically doing things. I can't walk with you around your neighborhoods or around your house in this space, but we can choose to bring in these ideas, consider the work that we've looked through tonight, and test them out on our own. So you can choose to work through all of these ideas or some of them that really grab you, or none. It's okay. You showed up and you're here. If you need any guidance at any time, you can rewatch this video. It will be available on KDL website and YouTube and Facebook. But really, I encourage you to practice. So whether you're rewatching, whether you're doing it the first time, the more you practice, the better you'll get. So whether that's taking photos with a film or digital camera, snapping with your smartphone, using the viewfinder that we created in class, or observing, you're seeing like a photographer. And photography is an incredible medium. So whether you're choosing to use it for snapshots, or to capture a memory, or to save it in time, whether you're doing posed shots with friends or family, or taking trips out to visit your area, it's a wonderful way to capture your world. If I could impart one thing from this class, like I was saying, again, it's to practice seeing. See the light and how it dances in the rooms of your house. See the colors of the leaves and how they are different. Move around and see how your perspective changes. See how your actions affect things. Go high and go low and bend gravity and practice and practice and practice and practice. So if you would like to share your photos, I would love to feature your work. I can feature students' work on my Instagram, which is at mallory.shotwell on Instagram. And you can send them to me directly through Instagram, or you could, if you use the hashtag KDL photo, I will be checking the hashtags and I will be featuring your work on my Instagram stories just to broadcast the awesome things that you're doing. Because we can't do things together in this class and it's more a listening class, I want you to go out there. I want you to go out there right now because the light is amazing. I want you to go out tomorrow. I want to see what you have done. So thank you so much to KDL. This is a blessing. This is incredible. It's such a gift to share my great passion with you all. And that's what we have for tonight.
Hello, Mallory. Thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. The slides that you were showing with those photographs were just incredible. I thank you so much. I learned so much tonight. I really appreciate you joining us and coming out tonight and sharing your amazing insights on photography.
Thank you. It's a gift.
Yeah, thank you. And please, I'm going to pop it up one more time in case you didn't get a chance to get it. But here's Mallory's Instagram handle at mallory.shotwell and her hashtag for hashtag KDL photo. So please share your work. We'll work with our social media director as well to get it up on KDL's websites if you submit anything. So thank you. And then just, looks like we have a quick comment. There we go. Thank you, Lisa. As well for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right, so just a real quick promo for our next show. Our next program will be in 2 weeks on May 19th, and we will be joined by the Alzheimer's Association for a discussion on understanding Alzheimer's and dementia. So please join us again in 2 weeks. And again, Mallory, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciated having you. It was a very amazing and interesting evening, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great night, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
And